guys, welcome to the Hollywood Dreams podcast. My name is Santi. I'm your host, and along with my fellow host, David. Hey, Dave, how are you?
What's up, Santi? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm pretty pumped for tonight because we got a one hell of a guest, Mr. Greg Fraser from Brighton Rock, currently Storm Force. Hey, Greg, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, gentlemen. How about yourselves?
We're just great here, and thank you so much for taking your time to being on the show. As I told you before we got started, Brighton Rocks has always been one of my favorites ever since I was a teenager. So and the first album that I listened was Love Machine, which has always been my favorite from you guys.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and so being able to talk with you is such a pleasure. So thank you for that, for taking the
Well,
time.
thank you. Thank you very much for the invite. I really appreciate that. And thank you for the kind words. You guys are in Argentina, right?
No.
Santi is. I'm in Ohio.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Yeah, kind
So,
of like
bit
a
of a bit of
international
a stretch.
right.
podcast.
Okay. So, Santi, can I ask you a question first off? Like, how would you have heard of Brighton Rock in Argentina?
Well, I've always liked to research new stuff, like new bands, more underrated bands, and I'm 30, so I'm a bit young to have uh, heard about you guys when you were actually playing, so or recording, I would say. So I pretty much came across your stuff on the internet when I was a teenager, and I just loved it.
Oh,
It
wow.
was right up my alley. So it's not such a much of a funny story, but yeah, I've always been really curious to find new stuff that I haven't heard before. So yeah, and basically that's how I came across you guys.
So, how excited are you winning the World Cup?
Well, pretty excited, I would say. Yeah, I mean that it was crazy. It was, I couldn't believe it. Really, I thought we were gonna lose the final like we did back in 2014 with France.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I just thought it was yeah, it's gonna be the same shit again. I mean, it was the first win since '86 for
Yeah.
Argentina, so it's been a
Yeah.
long time coming.
Well, it's good to see Messi win it before he retires too. I mean, he deserves it. He paid his dues, and is he like God in Argentina? Is there anybody more famous than that guy?
Basically. Yeah, basically, they're talking about putting his face on the on the bills. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. On the day they came back, they had 5 million people on the streets to like
Wow,
there was sort of a parade. They had to helicopter them out because the bus couldn't just they just couldn't drive for the crowd. It was
wow,
so
five
many
million.
5 million
That's
people. Yeah, it's
that's
insane.
insane. Oh my
He
God.
was insane.
Wow. Geez,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I don't understand how everyone was okay and nobody died or anything like that. 5 million
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Huh. That's
um.
awesome.
But yeah. So how's the start of the year treating you?
So far, so good. It's a little cold here. We got tonight is going to be minus 19 Celsius.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, you don't really experience that too much in Argentina, I guess, huh?
Not in Buenos Aires. Not
Yeah.
maybe in the south. Yes, south of the country, but not where I am.
I,
Definitely.
I bet you your co host Dave has some cold ones down in Ohio, though,
Yeah, we have them. Not today though. Today was pretty nice and sunny. A
right?
little warmer. Wasn't too
Okay.
bad.
Right
Tolerable.
on.
But it changes. It changes every day.
Sure.
Here it's
Sure.
crazy.
Well,
Sure.
where does
Uh,
that? Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get used. Once you get used to something, it changes. So
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So.
So you got some new stuff just came out, right? For Stormforce?
Yeah. We released our debut album at end of January, beginning of February. 2020, right in time for the pandemic to start. So
Great timing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that it was really exciting to release and everything. But it kind of sucked that we couldn't really play a lot of shows. So now we're into 2023. We're working on our second record. We got a couple of live shows coming up. We just did one in November, and hoping to have our new Stormforce record out by the fall. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. Everything's it's not going quick, but we're taking our time. We want to make sure it's right. So last thing we want to do is rush it and then think, oh God, I wish we would have spent a little more time on that song or this and that. We want to make sure it's good, and keeping our fingers crossed. We'll have it up by the fall.
Nice. Yeah, I've been listening to the album, and I really like it. I gotta say, I would say
Thank you.
It's a really coherent like follow up to the Brighton Rock style of sound. I don't know if you get that often, but I think it would be if Brighton Rock never break up, it would be the logical evolution of the sound. I would think.
Sure. Well,
Uh,
I wrote about 99% of all the music for Brighton Rock.
mhm.
So, and our singer wrote all the words. So that that's why you're probably hearing it. I mean, I write what I write. So it's definitely going to have that Brighton Rock sound because that's what I write. That style of
Yeah.
music, and I'm not going to change it now that Brighton Rock is no longer. I just keep writing
Well,
what I think sounds cool. Hey, that sounds cool. Let's put some words to it and let her rip, man.
but at the same time, that's not to say that. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm saying it's like dated or all
Mhm.
same old stuff. N- Nothing like that. I mean, it's fresh. It's definitely fresh. Has a little synth, which I really like. I'm a big synth guy, and yeah, I was a bit hesitant at first because I wasn't sure what to expect. As the name Stormforce kind of sounded like power metal to me, and I was
Right.
a little bit afraid. I'm not such a big fan of that style, like classic
Yep.
metal, power metal.
Hmm.
That's not really my
Yep.
stuff. So, but I was really, really positively surprised.
Oh, thank you. Thank
I
you.
really liked it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing that.
Yeah. So you got any? Are you planning playing live anytime soon?
Yeah, our next show is it's kind of local in the area. I live in Niagara Falls here, so we have a show coming up
Nice.
April 22nd, and then we got some possible shows for May and June, and then we'll see what happens when the summer kicks in. We're starting to book for the summer, but that's a ways off a little bit. But you got to book. You got to book ahead because all the good gigs get taken by other bands. So you got to plan well ahead to get especially some of the festivals and stuff you want to get on there and stuff. But yeah, so it's looking nice.
You bringing
Awesome.
anything over to the States or
Uh,
staying in Canada?
well, for now it's Canada until we get offers. It's kind of tough,
Mhm.
because with Brighton Rock, we had 3 records and was released around the world. We had a big rec company behind us, so that there was a name there.
Yeah.
Uh, Stormforce is we're not we are kind of well known, not well known, but we are known around the world, but we're not widely known. So in the
Hmm.
States, some people know who we are, but a lot of people don't. So it's hard for us to get gigs over there, especially now with the financial situation with everything, inflation and all that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
Right.
for a band that's kind of unknown for a Stormforce, we can't really demand a lot of money. So hey, you want us to come to Ohio? Well, that's going to cost some money, man, because, hotels and flights and, transportation and back and forth and getting our gear over there. And, then you got to get work visas and all that kind of stuff and then pay your crew and all that stuff. It's endless.
Yeah.
And the
You
money's
start
just
weighing
not.
it out like that, it's wow.
Oh, it's endless. It's endless. And then because we're not really well known. See, the old days you'd have a rec company with it would supplement. They would make up that money that you're not getting, right? Because you're an unknown band, you're coming to Ohio or New York. Okay, well, we're only going to pay you this amount of money, but we need that exposure. So the rec company would say, okay, look at here's some money to cover all the costs. And then hopefully you'll make it up with merchandise and record sales and stuff like that. But now record sales was a big thing, but now record sales,
Yeah.
they're not there anymore. So you can't really make that money. So, and the thing is, the price, even though the price for tickets for a lot of concerts have gone up, they really haven't. A lot of the clubs and stuff really haven't changed their prices for bands, in the last 10, 15 years. So they're still trying to keep it down because they want to make a buck too, and I totally get that, right? So it's a struggle for not just us, but for all the bands out there. They're all
Yeah.
struggling, man. I mean, and a lot of people don't have a lot of money to go out and support those bands anymore. So it's just a wait and see type of thing, and hopefully something will happen. And somebody in Ohio, Dave, might know some promoter. Go, hey man, get these guys over here.
Hey, I'll spread the word, man. I'll put it on my Facebook and everything else. So yeah, I'll definitely plug you guys and put it out there for sure.
I appreciate that.
See what we can do.
Thanks. Yeah, you
and,
never know, man.
and we'll do whatever we can on the show too for you.
That's
So
great. I
you got it.
appreciate
I mean,
that.
we can. I'll try to get you to South America. You can play Rock in Rio or something.
Oh my God!
Yeah, how cool would that be?
I've heard so many interviews and like all these bigger bands and stuff, and they'll say, "So, what was your favorite, place to play?" And so many people, rocking in Rio, rocking in Rio, rocking in Rio. I mean, the Scorpions and everything, like, yeah. Have you been there?
I've been to Rio. I've never been to the festival, but I've been to
Right.
Rio a couple of times, and yeah, it's an amazing city.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
one of the biggest festivals of forever. I mean, it's been a while. I mean,
definitely.
that's been going on a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, like it's Argentina, but forgive my ignorance, but that's South America, right?
yeah, we're south of Brazil.
Southern Brazil, yeah. So that's what they say. I mean, I just listened to another day, Billy Sheehan from Big Mr. Big and Sons of Apollo. You know who I'm talking about.
Mhm.
He was saying, yeah, man, that's definitely South America. That's the place you want to go. I mean, the crowds they're so enthusiastic. Like it's unbelievable. And
Yeah, well, I think I always say it is because we don't get that many shows a year as maybe some well, the U.S. definitely, or
Yeah.
some places in Europe get. So
right.
whenever we get that, so while the U.S. may have like 1,000 shows a year, we get like I don't know, a
A
hundred
hand,
maybe.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so every one
Mhm.
of those is gonna be, and we don't get them as I don't know, Guns N' Roses for Skid Row or whatever. They play every year in the U.S., but maybe they play every 20 years in Argentina,
Oh, okay.
or not 20, but every 5-10 years.
Sure.
So
There's definitely
it's not.
split out.
Yeah, every time it happens, you gotta be there. For example, we got the stadium tour coming up. Motley Crue and Def Leppard, not
Right.
Poison, sadly, but
Yeah.
Motley Crue and Def Leppard at least. And yeah, the last time that Motley Crue was here was in 2011, and that's,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's more than 10 years ago. So
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's an occasion. Yeah, you gotta be there. And people are really passionate about a lot of stuff in South America. So I guess music is not out of that passion.
Ah.
So yeah,
So how do you know how to speak English? Did they teach that in school to you, or?
well, I've
I
been
taught
learning.
him.
Yeah,
Boy,
Dave,
Dave.
Dave's been great. Yeah, no, I've been learning English since kindergarten.
Like in
Uh,
school.
yeah, in school. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So
We
every single year you were in school, you had an English class.
At least my school, yes. Not every school is like that, but yeah, my school was had a really good English program, and they started teaching us English at age 4 or 5, and all the way to through high school. So and I work at a for a U.S. based company, so
Okay.
I and all my clients are in the U.S. and Canada as well. So I
Okay.
speak
So
English every day, so I get to practice as well.
right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Because I was wondering about that. Like I remember, Canada's an English speaking country, but we also have French, and we learned
Yeah,
French in school. But because when you leave, you're not in school, you don't really speak French to each other because everybody speaks English. So you don't really. And then when you're done school, you forget it all. Like so, I don't really speak French anymore because I don't have anybody that speaks French. And then So that's why I'm kind of amazed, for somebody from, where you are in Argentina and you speak fluid French, fluid English. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, for my line of work, you gotta have English as a second language, definitely. It opens so many doors for you. Basically, it opens the world for you. So
Sure.
it's language. It's the most spoken language in the world. So you gotta
Hmm.
you gotta know it. But yeah, I do have some clients in the French speaking part of Canada, and it's always amazing to me how they just it's like talking to a French person, like a full on French person, not a Canadian French person, because they sometimes they don't even know how to speak English.
Oh no,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
if you go around Montreal, like the main big cities, they're bilingual. But if you start going in northern Quebec and everything, they
hmm,
don't speak English at all.
yeah,
It's
that blows my
just
mind.
French.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It blows my mind too. It's like we're in the same. How are we in the same country and can't understand each other? But it's okay. I like it. I like the diversity, and they're great people too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah.
Hmm.
I know people in Ohio. There's also some people that don't speak English at all, right?
No, a few. Or they make up their own version of English.
uh,
It could get quite interesting.
so Greg, I know that ever since Brighton Rock broke up, you've been you had your projects, like that Phrase Gang project you did and all the stuff.
Did two
But
two
what made
records, yeah.
you, yeah, what made you wanna start like a full on touring band again with in the style of Storm Force?
Well, it's. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, it's been my passion to in music. I've always wanted to be in bands and write music and stuff like that. So it's who I am. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know otherwise. I mean, it's every day. There's songs and music circulating in my brain, and I have to get it out. And I I don't know how not to do it. I mean, there's people that are into whatever they're into, and so it's just never left me. And I have this driving force that I got to keep going. I got to keep making. Every time I make a new song, it's so inspiring and uplifting and motivating. It makes me feel good. Sometimes if you're going through a little depression and stuff like that, like for me, all of a sudden, we're working on a new song, and our singer will come up with some new lyrics, or our drummer comes up with a new drum fill on a song, and all of a sudden the song starts taking shape, and like I'm like so happy. It's like wow, it's so uplifting, and it's exciting to me. And as
Yeah.
the songs get more and more put together, and then when they're finished, it's like wow, man, that song started with a little riff I wrote sitting on my bed playing my guitar. Now listen to it. It's a finished, completed song, and then when you go play live and you see these people singing along to that song, it's like wow, isn't this crazy? And then for somebody in Argentina to even know my name, man, it's like it's crazy to me, man. It's yeah, it keeps me going. I really enjoy it, and I think to my dying day, I'll continue to write music and make music and enjoy music.
Yeah, well, it definitely shows on your work, on your body work. Definitely, it shows that passion that you have for it. Definitely, you can really tell when an artist is phoning it in, and
Oh
I don't
yeah.
think it's your case, not at all. So yeah, you can really tell that. But so let's talk a little bit about Brighton Rock. Um, how how different was back in the 80s in Canada? I mean, was there like a big hard rock scene where you guys were from?
Well, I think we came out at the perfect time. The band started roughly at the end of 1983, 1984, and then started playing live at the beginning of 85. We got a record deal, so our record came out in 1986, and that's when what they call hair metal and hair rock and all that kind of stuff. That's when it was just flourishing. Everybody was loving it. So yeah, we came out at the perfect time. But we were being in Canada. There wasn't too many bands like us at that time. It started to come later, like in 87, 88, 89. There's a lot more bands were getting signed. But at the time, there's only like a two or three bands that got a major record deal in Canada in our style of music. So, yeah, we just were lucky that we just came out at the right time. I mean, there was bands that, were playing our style of music that were putting their first record out in 1994 and stuff like that. It's like, too late, guys. You missed the boat. Yeah, it's grunge time. People don't want to hear that, and now the record companies wouldn't even look at them and stuff. So yeah. So I don't know if I'd say if it was big in Canada, but all the big bands were coming through, like the Motley Crues and the Scorpions and the Van Halens and Bon Jovis and you name it. They were all coming through and playing all the big arenas and festivals and stuff like that. And so sellouts everywhere. Yeah, it was exciting, very exciting time.
Yeah, it was a great time for me. I grew up during it. Like I was into it, like the whole scene and everything. And I noticed that you guys worked with Michael Wagner.
Our first record, yeah.
That was pretty early on. I mean, he didn't work with White Lion yet. He didn't work with Skid Row. Yeah, none of those bands were out.
Even Extreme, none of them. It's funny you mentioned.
Yeah, he didn't work. I mean, Dokken. He worked with Dokken and a few bands, before that. But
he wasn't a household name at all. Nobody really knew.
No doubt. How did that come about? And how do you look back on that now? Your time with that?
Well, at the time when we were looking for a producer, our record company, they wanted us to use some Canadian producers and stuff like that. And I'd listen and I go, God, guys, if you hear what's really happening down in the States, like, and when you said Doc, and there was a record, Under Lock and Key, it wasn't released yet, but I heard some demos because Michael was shopping around because he was looking for more projects because he was looking for work, and I heard it and went, wow, now this is what I'm talking about. Listen to that guitar sound, listen to those harmonies, listen to how big those drums are. Nobody in Canada was getting that kind of sound yet. I mean, Bob Rock and Bruce Fairbairn were, they were doing really good with Loverboy and stuff like that and Honeymoon Suite, but nobody else was doing that. And we couldn't afford those guys, the Bob Rock and Fairbairn at the time, because we were unknown. And but Michael Wagner was hungry, so we sent him some of our demos, and he went, "Oh, absolutely, this is right up my alley for sure." So he's German, so he was living in I think in LA at the time, and I flew up, and we're in our bass player's basement, and one time we're rehearsing in his den. Here's Michael Wagner. I mean, and he helped us out, and he helped. I learned a real lot about recording because we were doing a lot of demos up to that point. But when I got with but because I always struggled to get a good guitar sound, and it's like the drums always sounded like kind of soft, and then Michael, he's a rocker, man, because like he went to school with Udo from Accept. I mean, they were in kindergarten together, so he grew up. So he loves heavy metal and hard rock, but he loves commercial stuff too. So he knows how to get those big Queen harmonies and stuff like that, and he knew how to get a great guitar sound. So I learned a lot, from that. And yeah, that was awesome. That was a great debut record to have somebody to work with. And we couldn't get him for the next record. He took right off.
Yeah, he took off. Yeah.
We were playing. It's funny when you mentioned White Lion. We were playing down in a place called the Country Club in California. They had a big show there, and we were headlining all these bands opening for us. And so after the show, I'm kind of hanging out. We're hanging out by the bus, and there's two guys come up, and the one guy goes, "Hey man, I love your record and stuff like that. And I see you work with Michael Wagner. I'm working with Michael Wagner now too." I go, "Oh, cool. What's the name of your band?" He goes, White Lion. I go, "Oh, what's your name?" He goes, Vito. I go, "Oh, okay, Vito. Nice to meet you, Vito." I know I never heard of him, right? Yeah, and all of a sudden I hear when the record came out, I went, "Holy man, listen to that guy play guitar."
No doubt.
Yeah. So that was really cool.
He's one of those guys, man, that is truly missed because he could do it. He could do it. And, he had some personal things and taking care of family, which I completely have 100% respect for. But it's time, man. We need Vito back.
Absolutely, man. Do you listen to Eddie Trunk at all, Dave? Or?
I do. I that interview he did with Vito, It's been a few years now, but
Yeah.
it sounded very promising. It sounded like there might be something going. And
I know, but from what I've read some interviews and stuff with him, and it just seems like he loves making music and loves being in a band, but the business itself, it can be so brutal, man. It's they say it's the most corrupt business in the world, and it's a
Yeah.
shame because that's why a lot of these people become drug addicts and drunks and stuff like that. They want to push it all away and go, I can't take this. I just want to think about music and what happens when you push everything out of the way, everything starts getting taken away from you. Because you're naive, you're in a fog all the time, and you start signing stuff away and stuff like this. And that's a perfect example of Vito. He just couldn't stand the business anymore, because all I wish I could do is just play music and not have to deal with all that crap. And the problem is, the bigger your band gets, the more bullshit there is. It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, you enjoy a lot of the fruits of the labor, but there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe we're dealing with this stuff. And everybody, all the sharks come out of the woodwork because they all want a piece of that pie, right? Oh, look at that. We can get let's get some money from these guys. We're on to something here, and they're all nice, but meanwhile, they're sharks, right? So, yeah. I don't know how we got into Vito stories, but yeah.
Like a Wagner thing. But you saying it about the business, did you guys get signed through Canada or was it the States?
Yeah, we got signed initially to which is called WEA, WEA Canada, WEA International, and what that stands for is Warner, Elektra, and Atlantic. So in America, you had Warner Brothers, you had Elektra Records, you have Atlantic Records. So they combined all three of those together in Canada and just called it WEA, WEA, right? So then all through Europe, we were signed to WEA. But then we signed an American contract also with Adco Records, which is a division of Atlantic Records, for our first record, right? So that when the second record came out, they didn't sign us again because we didn't sell enough on the first record, And it's tough when you're signed to, like when you're a Canadian band signed to a Canadian label initially. The Americans, they don't want, it's like, well, you've already kind of been signed, so now we're kind of an afterthought. So they don't really, if they do sign you, they're not going to put all their money into you because they have to share with Canada's rec company too. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're not exclusively theirs. So it's tough. We would go tour the States and come to some of these cities, and our records weren't even in the stores. So people go, man, you guys are great. Where can I get your record? It's not in the stores. It's like, oh, it kind of defeats the purpose, right?
Right.
But that's all part of the business.
Yeah, and so I US market back then. I mean, it's easy.
Well, we're losing them.
There's no.
I think we're losing your brother.
Yeah, he was having trouble with his internet earlier.
Okay.
I don't know where he was going to go with that question, or else I would take care of that. But let's see. I'm trying to think of what else what I wanted to discuss with you. When you looking at what's going on now with, I don't know, I like to say there's a little bit of a revival with the scene. You have here in the States, we have the M3 Festival.
Yeah, I'm Albert.
Oh, yeah. And the Monsters of Rock cruise.
We played Monsters of Rock in 2019, Brighton Rock.
Did you?
Yeah, we're on that cruise. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I was about to ask you if you guys ever did that, or if there were invites.
Yeah. Well, it's. I hate to kind of say this, but that was officially our last show was on Monsters of Rock cruise because in 2020 our singer sadly passed away, Jerry. Yeah. So that was a great way to kind of end it all, being on the Monsters of Rock cruise. But it was when we were there, it was awesome, because we're playing with Tesla and Queensryche and Faster Pussycat and Tom Kiefer and Dixon and all those bands, man.
Yeah, they always get great lineups.
Awesome, great, and it was such a great time. I mean, I would definitely go back and just as a fan, because it's so great. You wake up and you have a nice breakfast. And, well, it's 12 o'clock. Do you want to go watch Cinderella, or you want to go watch Tom Kiefer, or do you want to go on the get a swim, or what do you want to do? Or like, it's just, and then every hour there's a band playing. There's 3 different stages, right? You got your lounge, you got your festival, or your theater stage, and you got your the pool stage, the outdoor one, which is what we played, right? It was fantastic. It's like, let's go grab something to eat, then we'll go watch Tesla a little bit later, and every day it was like this, for 5 days. So I can see why people, once they do it every single year. So I would definitely love to do that again. That was, I highly recommend it. If people can afford to do it.
Definitely on my bucket list.
Do it, man. Do it. Do it one time, man, for sure.
I have
Can you guys hear me now?
Hi, there he is.
Yeah, we see you. We hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we have thunderstorm right now going through, so maybe connection is kind of, I don't know. Hopefully I don't lose power, but I don't think so. So what you guys were talking?
I was trying to go off your question, but I totally had no idea what you were going to ask. You cut off a little too soon.
I was just gonna say that what I was saying is that nowadays, with the current landscape of music, you can get on the internet, there's no real barrier anymore, where breaking through a market is not as hard as back then. Like getting Stormforce to get views on YouTube or streams on Spotify, it's easier nowadays than it was maybe getting Brighton Rock albums, records, or CDs in the U.S. stores, right? Was it hard back then to get the band break through the U.S. market, or?
It's hard for every band, not because we're Canadian. I mean, there's a million American bands that can't break America. It's such a big country, right. And all the Europeans, they're trying to break it too. So it is tough. It is tough. And back in in the 80s and 90s and stuff, radio was everything. But other than MTV, video and stuff like that. But radio was huge. So if you couldn't get on the radio and you couldn't get an MTV, you better hope you're getting in some of those big magazines and stuff like that. Other than that, you're dead in the water, So now things have totally changed. Now radio is not so big anymore, because people would rather go on Spotify and iTunes and stuff like that, and the internet in general. People don't really listen to, like you ask a teenager around where you are around here, I don't think they're listening to the local radio station very much anymore. They don't want to deal with commercials, and then the repetitive same music all over and over and over and over. They're not really discovering new stuff. So in the internet, you can discover all new music like Stormforce and stuff like that. But having said that, now that anybody can record a record with your iPhone on GarageBand, and now it's overly saturated with people putting out music every single day. So it's hard to get noticed now. You mentioned that it's kind of easier now. It kind of is easier, but it's kind of tougher in the long run, because it's hard to get noticed. Now it's really a needle in the haystack. Back in the 80s, only professional bands were getting records out. You had to be good. You had to have a real record company to get noticed. And now record companies you don't really need record companies anymore, because they're not making the money off of you, because there's no records to sell. So they don't have money to invest in you, to give you tour support and stuff like that. Like, you want to go tour with Bon Jovi and you're an unknown band, they're not going to pay you. You're going to pay Bon Jovi. Hey, you want to come on our show? You want to come on our tour and play in front of 20,000 people a night? Well, give us some money, because that's exposure. So that's what you call pay to play, right? How many bands can afford to do that? You need a rec company to help you out with that, and that's especially in Europe back in the day. It was all pay to play, So so now it's even tougher to get noticed, but it's easier too. I mean, it's
it's easier to record maybe and have your stuff out there, but it's not easy to get noticed.
It's easier to give yourself a boost, but to keep it going.
Definitely. Right. I mean, Yeah, it's just like you're saying. So back then, maybe of 1,000 bands, only 20 got the deal and the record deal and the distribution deal. But it, yeah, nowadays you got all the whole 1,000 bands get the deal, quote unquote. But yeah, it's the same thing but reverse. You get the there's too much stuff, and not it's not easy to find the real good stuff, I guess.
Well, that's the truth. That's the thing too, because there's a lot of stuff out there, but you know, I wouldn't put a percentage on it, but a lot of it's not good because they're
Mhm.
not experienced. They're not, so like, a new band, they couldn't afford a Michael Wagner or a Mutt Lang or because there's no rec company paying it for you. So, what band can afford a big time producer anymore? So all these bands are putting records out without proper producers. They're just kind of winging it and go, hey, sounds good to me. How about you? Yep, sounds good to me. Let's put it out, right? And then
Yeah.
people that got trained ears going, wait a minute, this doesn't sound that good. You should have pumped some money into it, but there's no money to pump into it, right? So it's a whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's also because I mean, hard rock is not as popular, of course, as it was. So the big producers are not. It's not as easy to get a big producer because there's not that many big producers out there.
Not
Other than
anymore.
not
Not like it
anymore.
was. No.
No.
No,
They're
I
starving
mean,
too. They're struggling too because their phones aren't ringing anymore.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
But
I mean,
especially when every artist thinks they can just hit a button and produce the next hit record on their own, it's
yeah.
kind of taken away. It kind of takes away from the magic of everything that it once was, and
Yep.
that's
Yeah,
tough.
yeah. Like there's not an aura of mystery around it. Like, oh, the mysterious big producer and is gonna give you the deal of a lifetime, and you gotta deal with the devil and all that '80s glamorous rocks, like mysticism. And yeah, that
Yeah,
all
no.
that's gone, I guess.
Yeah, and the mystique is gone too. I mean, back in the 80s, just in the 70s and stuff like that. Before videos came out like MTV and stuff like that. Like when Van Halen first come out, I seen them in 1978, and I was 16 years old. So seeing them live for the first time was unbelievable because you couldn't see them live anywhere else. There was no YouTube. There was
Right.
no way to see them visually, right?
Mhm.
There's nothing. They weren't on TV, so you could never see them unless you went to see them live in concert. So all you
Mhm.
had was photos from magazines back then, Circus and Hip Radar and Cream and Metal Edge and all that kind of stuff, and guitar magazines. So that there was a whole mystique, like what they look like live, how do they move. So when I seen Van Halen first time, it's like, oh my god, like these guys are crazy, like the way they're running around, the energy and stuff like that. It's like, whoo, it's like, oh, so it was very inspiring. So I want to do that, man. That's what I want to
Yeah.
do. Like, I want to be that guy. So that really kind of kicked me in the butt. And I was
Hmm.
playing clubs at the time, and I just never stopped. I quit high school when I was in grade 10, and 16 years old, I became a full-time musician. I just never looked back. I just kept going and going and going and get jobs in between bands to keep it going, and just trying to fulfill that dream.
Well, here you are. How many
Yeah,
years later? still
I know.
still doing it.
Still
So
plugging away.
definitely
Yeah.
definitely fulfilled the dream, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely the rock and roll kid in person.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, that's
and
such a
you still got people like us that'll probably listen to music until we're gone, and whoever we
Yeah.
pass it down, like I have a couple. My kids are 17 and 19,
Right.
and they listen to the music. I've introduced them to a whole new world of just really talented bands. And you said, your debut came out in '86, and when I listen to that record, it's such it's a pretty mature record. To me, it's very strong. It kind of reminds me, Tesla came out in '86 too,
Yep.
with their debut. So
Hmm.
those are two debut albums, and obviously from young bands that didn't sound like it was a rookie album. It sounded so and maybe Michael Wagner had a lot to do with that as well. But the band itself, the writing and everything else sounded so like, I mean, for lack of a better term, I mean, it was way ahead of its time in my opinion. And
Well, it all comes down to writing. Writing is everything. Um,
mhm,
a lot of bands will concentrate on their image, like
mhm,
first and foremost. I mean, they'll get a guy in their band because the way he looks. It's like, oh, well,
mhm,
that guy looks like a rock star. Let's get him. Well, he can't really play so good. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine, right? And then
Mhm.
the guy couldn't write a song of his life dependent on it and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's what it was all about. I mean, there's a lot of guitar players out there that want to be Yngwie Malmsteen, and they'll spend every second they have learning how to play fast and learning how to wail and shred and everything they do. And they, sure enough, these guys are amazing. But while they were doing that, I was learning how to write songs. I spent all my time working on songs, getting them better and better and better and better and better and better and better. Yeah, our first record has 10 songs. So if you write 100 songs, you might find 10 or 15 that are actually pretty good. The other ones might be crap, but you have to go through that crap to learn.
mhm.
And then you have a producer that's older than us. And we were like I think our 22 or something on our first record, roughly. And Michael was already in his 30s. So he's already been around the block. So he could distinguish stuff. He can go, okay, see that song there? Does the guitar solo really have to be 3 minutes long? Maybe we can kind of, you know, bring that down a bit. And then, the song, so that kind of helps you trim all the fat away from it and really, and that's what you learn. That's what a producer's job is to make it, get the best out of everybody, whether you're a musician or a songwriter. They'll get the best out of your vocals, the best out of your guitar playing, the best out of your drums, and the best out of your songwriting. He can tell which song's going to be a hit. He can tell us like, oh, I don't know, but this song's great at live, yeah, but it's not going to translate on record because the visuals aren't there. So, sometimes you visually a song looks, oh, these guys, you got everybody singing this big, but then when you hear it by itself with no visuals, like, I don't know, the song's kind of lame, man. It needs something. You need some kind of a spark, right? So yeah, and Tesla's the same way, right? They're like a meat and potatoes band. They're not trying to sell you on their looks; they're trying to sell you on their songs.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it's what I still strive for today. It's all about the songs and the melodies and trying to. When the song finishes, does the listener remember it? Is the chorus still ringing in their head? That's what you hope for.
Mhm.
There's a lot of bands you hear a song and the song ends, it's like, I don't even know what the name of the song is. Like, what was that? Like, you forgot about it because there's so much going on. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's it. It's a whole art, man. I mean, I'm still learning myself. I've been doing it for over 40 years, 45 years actually.
Hmm.
And I'll be 60 years old in 3 weeks.
Oh.
So yeah, and I've been doing it since I was 16 years old. So I mean, I'm still learning, man. I'm still discovering new things when writing music and playing guitar and stuff like that. And that's what I love about it. It keeps everything fresh. It's not stale to me. And you said earlier, some of these bands are just phoning it in. Oh, I know, I hear it, I can see
Yeah.
it. Okay, well, this worked before. Let's do it again, right? It's like, okay, all right, knock yourself out, right? And the fans can see it, and so we try to keep it fresh, and hopefully we are. So
Yeah. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's fans out there who don't want to see their favorite bands evolve. It's like, oh, but they don't sound like that anymore. It's, well, what do you want that? They're, especially like I hear it a lot because my favorite band is Def Leppard, and
right,
I've heard it a lot. Oh, they haven't put a good album out since Pyromania, and I'm like, really? Have you listened to the albums?
right,
Maybe they don't sound like Pyromania, but they're still good records. But we're
absolutely,
talking about guys who they're getting older. They're not going to write the same kind of material they wrote when they were 18, 19, 20 years old. And yeah, I always find myself defending them guys because right now they're still doing it. And
well
they
that
went, and they're one of those bands. They went on this stadium tour, And out of the three main bands, they were the only ones that had a new record out.
And the lead off single, I don't know if that was a lead off track. The lead off single from that new record, I heard that that's what their opening track was live. I forget what it was off that new
Yeah,
record.
it was. Oh man, I can't think of the name of the song, but
Yeah,
I can find out real quick. But I know what you're talking. And yeah, it was the opening track of the album or of the
it was.
show.
That's a great song. Oh man,
Yeah,
that's a fantastic song.
And they actually played. I want to say they played 4 tracks from that new album.
Right.
So that was cool. And there's a song on there called "This Guitar,"
Okay.
which is probably my favorite song on the album. It's a ballad, and it was written by Phil Collin about picking up the guitar and basically, falling in love with music and the guitar. It's almost like the song is about a wife, but it's really about his guitar.
Right.
And it's just an amazing song. And I was so glad when they opened that up and they played it acoustically. And it was, it's just it's like, I wish more bands would go on tour and support the new material. I mean, Poison, who I love, don't get me wrong, and Bret Michaels is a great showman, puts on a great show, but they've been playing the same set list since like 1991.
Yeah.
They haven't mixed it up. And I mean, literally, they have not mixed those songs up. Even if they want to go back to the first 3 albums, they don't even pull any out. It's basically the same 10 or 11 songs, and that's all they play is like 10 or 11 songs. Then you have the long guitar solos, the long drum solos, and all that stuff. But I mean, I just wish bands would be more open to putting out new material and going out there and playing that new material.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you get, as you were saying, there's a lot of fans that they're gonna say, "Hey, I don't want, I'm not paying to listen to your new stuff. Play Freebird,"
It's almost like a double-edged sword. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, especially now for those big festivals, stuff like that people are spending their hard-earned money, and a lot of times they don't get to see a lot of concerts. Sometimes they haven't seen a concert in 10 years, so when they come out, they want to hear the hits. They don't want to hear. And what do you mean you didn't? Why would you play the song I never heard before? And you didn't play this song. This is the song I wanted to hear, and you didn't play it. So, because I know exactly what you're saying. I totally agree. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of tough on the other hand because people want to hear the hits. So unless a band's willing to be a Bruce Springsteen and play for 3 hours, where you can play all the hits and play all the deep cuts and obscure tracks and some cover songs, stuff like that. There's not too many bands that can pull that off anymore, and it's tough. I mean, I just seen Journey just played a show the other day, their first show of 2023. And I looked at the song list and same as last year. It's all the hits. Every song on there is fantastic. I know every one of them. They're all great, but it's kind of, they got a new record. I don't think they're playing one new song off the new record because it's like, what song are they going to give up? They're only going to play so much time, whether it's 90 minutes, whatever they're doing. So it's kind of tough to please everybody.
Yeah, well, that's where I give Def Leppard credit because they work those songs in, and Def Leppard do change up the set list. One night they'll bust out Wasted, and you're like, oh wait, totally blow your mind. And then another night, they hit my favorite album is High and Dry, and they hit
great record.
Let It Go. They Bring On the Heartbreak was on there. They touched on that album quite a few times, and I was really shocked. But it's cool. Did they ever play Rock?
Did they ever play Rock Brigade live?
They have, but I think the last time they did it was when they had their residency in Vegas.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, because they did. I think they played 2 shows a night. I believe that's how they worked. And each show had a different set list. And one show they would do like you'd hear Wasted, Rock Brigade, Hello America. I'm not sure if they ever touch on that, but they definitely had touched on those first couple albums. And then the next set, you'd hear like the hits, and then they would switch it out every night that they would play it. So
I think the band that takes it to extreme is Kiss, for example, right? the last two times that I saw Kiss live, Paul Stanley said the exact same jokes at the exact same moment, both times. It's incredible. I mean, at that point, why don't you have like a sort of intern that tells you, "Hey, dude, change it up. Don't play Guantanamera because it has nothing to do with Argentina. It's a Cuban song. We don't.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with us. I don't even know what Guantanamera is." Yes. I mean, but yeah, they have it down to a science. They
Yeah,
kind of mix it up. They maybe they change one song on the set
Right.
list, but yeah, it's incredible how
very
they do
rarely do they change one song.
Yeah.
it.
Well, they're definitely set in their ways, those guys.
And nobody's gonna tell them any different, man.
No,
They've
you
earned
can't
it.
tell
They've
them
earned it.
nothing. They'll tell you what's going on. You're not going to tell them what's going on.
And it's always funny because he doesn't remember which song goes from which album. So he always says this song that you can find on a live free or live one. Oh, yeah, of course you're gonna find it. It's a live album.
All right. Yeah.
This one goes back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, people?
Yeah.
Hey, but it's a band, and I love them. They're hanging
Oh,
on my wall.
absolutely.
They're in my record collection. I know people who are in tribute bands, and just the whole thing, man. It's they're rock and roll, man. They're rock and
Oh,
roll.
I was a fanatic when I was a kid. I was in the Kiss Army. I seen them on their Destroyer tour, Rock and Roll Over tour, Love Gun tour, and
Wow.
that was it
And
for me for a while. Because once I heard Christine 16 and went, I don't know, guys, you kind of are selling out a little bit. Like 16 years old, really? Gene, Gene's going, I gotta have her. I got it. Really, Gene? She's 16. You gotta have her. Come on, bud.
well, hey, if Uncle Gene didn't get her, Steven Tyler would, so it didn't really matter at that point.
Yeah. So,
Oh, you know what? It's just hey, they're iconic. The
absolutely.
music's iconic. And
Oh,
me and Santi are in agreement that we're both non-makeup era Kiss guys.
oh,
My
I think
unpopular
musically they got
opinion is
better.
that 80s Kiss is a lot better than
Yeah,
70s Kiss.
I think musically they, especially during that the Bruce Kulick and Eric Carr and Gene and Paul. I feel like that musically, as much as I love Ace and Peter and
yeah.
everybody else that came through the doors, I mean, that those four members I felt really took that band to new heights musically.
Well, Eric and Bruce, they definitely took the musicianship up a notch for sure.
Yeah.
Especially Eric, right? Like he gave him some balls, man. Peter
Yeah,
Chris,
you're not kidding.
yeah, man. I mean, he really, Peter Chris is awesome and everything, but when you hear Eric, it's like, okay, what now? This is he brought a whole
Yeah.
new energy to him,
Oh yeah. When I hear like even like a ballad like I Still Love You, you listen to those drums in that song, it's like
Cannons.
yeah, you feel it. You feel it.
Oh yeah, man.
And that's what I love about music. And all you guys are out there doing it. You're writing it. You were doing it with Brighton Rock, and you're doing it with Stormforce. You're doing it with all this news. It's still there. It's still there. The energy is still there. The creativity is still there, and that's what I love to see. I'm 48 years old, and I like I said, I grew up being a part of all this when it was happening, when it was hot.
Right.
And to sit here now, 30 some years later, over 30 years in your case, with 86 being the debut, and being able to talk to you about it. And like I say, with all the other musicians we have on this show, I'm not going to kiss anybody's ass. I give you guys all credit because I was a fan when I was a kid. I'm a fan now. I'm never going to change.
I'm a fan too. I'm the same as you, buddy.
And it's awesome for us to have guys like you and everybody else that have been on this show and given us their time, man. It's amazing.
Yeah,
love
definitely.
it. Every minute of it. I love it.
It's funny, like every once in a while I'll go to a concert and the odd time somebody might recognize me. They go, "What are you doing here? What do you mean? I'm just like you. I mean, just because I'm in if I'm not in this band, I want to see the same bands. I want to go see Tesla. I want to go see Motley. I want to go see Def Leppard, just like you, man. I'll be up there going, yoo just like everybody else.
Well,
Yeah. So
if I ever look over and I see you at a Tesla show or wherever we're at, guarantee I'm walking over with another beer in my hand and we're gonna have a beer together.
right on.
Yeah,
Count me in.
there's
Count
this
me in.
idea that rock artists are full of themselves, that they don't go to other people's shows because nobody's
there
better
is
than
that.
myself. Yeah.
There is that. I've met. I played with open for bands that they kind of look down at you and they're like, "So give me a break, buddy. Get out of here. Who do you think you are, man?" Oh yeah, that does exist.
You have that.
Anytime you get into entertainment, whether it be acting or music or whatever, you're gonna get that. It's gonna
Sure.
happen. There's always that competitiveness. There's always the egos. You just you got to choose what you want to be. Are you going to be the guy that's going to be cool with everybody, or are you going to be, you know,
Yeah, asshole.
I
Yeah.
don't want to throw out any names, but we know who they are. We've seen them. Although, hey, I do want to give credit to one Axl Rose though. Talk about a guy who's changed it and turned it around. I give Axl 100% credit, going from who he was in the 90s, bitching about everything, hating everybody, dumping band members, not showing up at shows, showing up late, whatever, walking off stage. What he's done with Guns N' Roses with this reunion and what he did with AC/DC, playing side by side in two of the biggest rock bands ever. And showing up every night and playing and being on time
and nailing it. He's singing good too, man.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Credit to Axl Rose.
Well, there's a perfect example of somebody that needed to be humbled. He was on top of the world, and then his ego was so big that he felt like, I don't need any of you guys in this band anymore. This is my band, right? And then the guys started quitting and stuff like that, and then now his band was gone. He goes, "That's okay. I don't need you guys. I'm the one. I'm the star of this show." And then he puts that Chinese Democracy album up, which is good. But it didn't sell like a Guns N' Roses record then he's like, wow, what happened, right? And then now nobody's talking about Axl Rose, and he does a live show on the Grammys and everybody's making fun of the way he looks. And he put the weight on and he had weird hair and he got some, all of a sudden he's not the man anymore. So now so that's kind of good in a way, because it kind of brought him back down to earth, and now he's cool again. Right?
Hey, hey. I mean, just from stories I've heard, him talking to people, taking pictures, signing autographs, doing his thing, not being angry. Yeah. And the fact that he was doing Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and not one issue. Even I think even at one time he was singing in a cast or something sitting in a wheelchair, I believe. That was Axl, right?
That's
like early on. Me or something, and then he was out there singing the songs.
Yeah. So,
hey.
Yeah, he's still singing good too. There's a lot of guys out there that can't sing anymore at our age, I mean, I think we can name a couple of guys off the top of our head that just aren't singing it good anymore. But you got guys like Axl Rose. He's still singing in the original key, and that's some hard vocals he's pulling off, man. And he's doing it night after night.
And you're right. There are a handful of guys who are Jeff Keith. He still sounds great. CJ Snare from Firehouse,
right?
It's phenomenal, man. We just recently went and saw them guys, and and I know Firehouse came a little later to the scene, but still though he was nailing those notes, and it was great to see. It's great to see.
Oh, it is, absolutely, man. I mean, nothing's sadder to see when people that you idolize and you totally respect, and they're not as good as they were anymore, but they're still trying to hang in there, and it's kind of sad. You kind of feel sorry for them instead of being excited for them. It's like, oh God, what happened, man? It's a shame, but that's life, man. I mean, it's no different than an athlete. You get some young athlete, he's on top of the world, and 5 years later, he's trying to hang on to his job. It's like, what happened to this guy? Well, that's what we call age, man, and it's going to happen to every one of us. So you just got to keep plugging and hope for the best.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
definitely.
But
Yeah,
definitely glad to see you still doing it, man.
Oh, I appreciate
definitely.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to hearing more new Stormforce
Yeah, I can't
soon.
wait for the new album.
Yeah, well, either can I. Jeez.
How far into it are you guys? Would you say?
Well, we've got about 5 finished songs, and we got about another 5 or 6 that are not finished, but they're kind of finished, but they just haven't all been recorded. And we keep, like I said, we're taking our time. We'll finish the songs like, what do you think? I don't know. That part bugs me, man. Like, okay, well then we kind of you kind of nip away. Sometimes that's not good doing that either. Sometimes you can get too analytical, and sometimes
Yeah,
you lose a little life with it. So you got to watch it. And so that's why sometimes you need fresh ears like a producer. So we have a guy that's, hey man, you ain't touching that. That's my favorite part of the song. Really? Okay. So now all of a sudden they give you, something you thought it wasn't any good. That's somebody else's favorite part. So then you get rejuvenated. Sometimes you need to step away from things and let somebody else with fresh ears, because you get too inside it sometimes. And
yeah.
you got to be able to step back. But yeah, I'm excited about it because we got some real crankers on this new one, man. We got some high energy songs and lots of great melodies and big choruses and stuff like that. And yeah, we're gonna keep it going.
Very cool.
Nice. Awesome. So we're both vinyl collectors, and we've been wondering, do you have any plans of reissuing the Brighton Rock catalog on vinyl or CD at least?
Well, I was mentioning to Dave when you got cut off there a little bit there. Sadly, our singer passed away in 2020,
Yeah.
and he was kind of in charge of that kind of stuff. He, as a matter of fact, when you mentioned vinyl in Canada, he was a co-owner of Precision Recording, which is a vinyl pressing plant. They make vinyl records,
Okay.
and it's one of the biggest vinyl uh, pressing companies in the world because it's
Oh
all
wow.
new. I mean, because vinyl's not what it was back in the 70s and the early 80s. So
Mhm.
all the big plants all shut down. So the ones that kind of stuck around, they're all kind of like all the old gear, like they're kind of still hanging in there. Where this particular place is all new, brand new, state of the art stuff. So like there's uh, uh, bands from all over the world getting their records pressed there.
Well,
And
I've heard that since for this year, for the first time since 1983, I think vinyl sales surpassed CD and other formats for the first time since the early 80s. So it's definitely making a comeback.
yeah, it's definitely more of a novelty too. I mean,
Yeah.
because you got to admit, I grew up with vinyl. I mean, I still have my vinyl records from when I was 8 years old, like my
Hmm.
Partridge Family and K-Tel's greatest hits and all these funny stuff. But I still got them all. But the beauty of it, being able to hold the big record. I mean, an album cover, it's a
Yeah.
work of art, right? You get a
Mhm.
little CD or a little cassette. It does not as impressive anymore. And being able to flip it over and open it up and have a booklet and then, that kind of stuff is I kind of miss all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of people that still say if you have the right you know turntables and stuff like that, that it's still the best sounding format there is. I mean, to me it's still warmer sounding than a cd
Definitely.
sounds good, but it kind of loses a little of its magic somehow. I can't put a finger word
It's
wise
too
on it.
precise. I think CDs are too precise. It's too clinical.
It
Vinyl gives
is.
the little imperfections that a physical format like vinyl has. I think that it has like an ambience or a quality of sound that the CD loses because of that precise
Yeah.
quality, nature.
I think so too, and to me, vinyl sounds warmer. Like it's not
Yeah,
so harsh and hard sounding. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I have a great system, and we do get a lot of reissues of albums that are, I think a lot of them are digitally, they're not analog. I put on an album from '89 or before, and those albums sound so much fuller. There's so much going. I mean, you can hear every little thing.
Right.
Um, I could get a new album that was remastered or whatever, may not have been done remastered from the original tapes, and you're just getting basically a digital copy on a vinyl record.
a big
And,
CD. Yeah,
Well,
and
what?
that kind of sucks. But for the albums that you do get, and there are some really music on vinyl do some really good remasters, and I believe all that stuff's remastered from the actual. You
Absolutely.
know,
There's bands out there that have a CD. Hey, let's take the CD and make vinyl from that CD. They're using that as the template. It's like, you know.
yeah,
So that's a lot
you know,
because they want to jump on because the vinyl is because like you were mentioning it because it's a big selling now, a selling thing. They want to jump on it too. Here, just take the CD, make vinyl from this. And it's like, no, that's not the same, man.
yeah,
It
you're
doesn't have
not
that's
getting,
how it
you're not
works.
getting the
the same
sound.
frequencies aren't there anymore, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's promising to see that vinyl is coming back. I love that. I love seeing it. There's a lot of young kids. I have two daughters, you know, and they're into it too. You know, like
Nice.
my oldest daughter, she's got a turntable in her room, and she's trying to get some vinyls and asking about vinyl. And yeah, it's I kind of like it. You know, it's good to see that music still it kind of exists. You know, like especially
Yeah,
our
it's good to see that. Yeah.
You
yeah,
gotta
because
you gotta pass on your Partridge Family albums for her now.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure she's waiting for that day.
Yeah, it's funny because like we have a big club, not club. It's like a theater called Massey Hall in Toronto here, and I don't know how familiar with Rush you are, but their first live record, "All the World's a Stage," was recorded at Massey Hall,
Oh, nice.
and
Yeah.
and we did they have this a touring company called Classic Albums Live. They actually
Mhm.
tour through the states too. And what it is, they take a record and they perform it exactly like the record in order from start to finish, including fade outs. Like a song fades, they literally fade out on stage. They literally like
Hmm.
and they don't look like the people on the bands. They're not trying to be like a clone band, like dress up like Kiss and stuff. They don't look nothing, but they're literally just performing it.
Yeah.
So we went to see. They had Led Zeppelin 4, and went to see it at Massey Hall, and it was amazing because these guys were just nailing it, right? And then so they do a whole record from start to finish, Stairway to Heaven and everything. And then after that, they take a break, come back out and play a lot of the hits, and I'm looking around and go, man, there's some young people in this, a lot of old people, but there's a lot of young people here, and I'm like, that's awesome, like this record was released in 1974 or something, and
Yeah.
the fans are still there embracing it, because if you look at the Grammy Awards and all these big award shows, rock does not exist at all anymore. It's all hip hop and R&B, and
Yeah.
all these winners are winning Grammys. Is like international album of the year. It's like I don't even know who that person is. Like what happened,
Yeah.
man? Like and the Billboard Music Awards. I always record them just in case something good's happening. And I just keep fast forwarding. Like, okay, I have no
Yep.
idea who you are. And I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. And yeah, but it's still promising to see that there is, I mean, the fact that, you just mentioned the Motley Crue, Def Leppard festival tour, that was
Mhm.
hugely successful. And these are
Yeah, it was.
bands from the
Mhm.
bands from the 80s, So that, what does that tell you? There's a
Yeah,
lot
and
of
I
bands.
went and I went to the one here in Cleveland, and same thing. And sorry to interrupt, but it was the same thing. Looking around and seeing young people, seeing kids rocking
Yeah.
out, and it was yeah. So yeah, definitely a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's because the 80s are getting cool again with all these shows, Stranger Things, and all types of shows. They're making the 80s cool again in a way, fashion, and of course, the music. All this stuff that was previously like buried on the ground is now it's coming up back again, you know.
Dude, it's
And
hilarious you said that. The first day that Cobra Kai, it was the first